Worbla. And basically, since we already told you guys, looks like you guys have some projects in mind that you're thinking of. That's one of the exciting things about Worbla is if you're anything like me and you see movies or you read your comic books or you're playing your video games and you see those super awesome armor pieces that you really want to have, Worbla is a fantastic tool to get you on the road to actually achieve that. So I will basically, here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about basically start off with researching your costume, making your pattern for what you're going to be making out of Worbla, and then just kind of talking over what tools that you're going to want to have in basically your workspace for that. Then we'll kind of go into the actual methods of making it, forming it into the shapes you need, and then also kind of talking about attaching it, making, things to attach it to your body. And then it is kind of necessary. Sometimes, I don't know, I've seen sometimes it's an afterthought. You're like, look at this. Oh, I don't know how to attach it.
I put it on myself.
Yeah. So we'll make sure to cover that today, as well as also the finishing of the Worbla.
Elmer's glue.
Priming, painting, sealing, all that good stuff. So I'm sure that you guys at least have all heard of Worbla. It's a wonderful thermoplastic material. It is sandable. It's actually when Kristen made this slide.
Do you guys? Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
Do you want to see what? Have you seen it? Have you touched it? Have you
That's
felt
why
it?
we're here.
Okay.
I have never touched it.
Have
you ever touched it?
Yeah.
Before come touch our Worbla.
So that's just there. What Kristen wrote on here about the texture.
That is the glue side,
That's the
but
glue side.
both sides can glue?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what Kristen wrote about the texture when it's formed up, that it's like a fruit roll-up, that's very accurate. I actually kind of laughed. I was like, that's exactly what it's like.
Really want to.
Yeah. So that kind of gives you an idea of that. Let's see. Another cool thing about Worbla is that it is very low on waste, because basically after you trim your pieces, you can take all your extra little tiny scraps and you can heat them up and squish them together, and then it's kind of like a moldable clay.
It's like putty.
Yeah, and so you can do all these little fancy
From Wonder Woman for
details.
this?
Oh, cool.
So it's very nice that you definitely get your money's worth when you buy it, even though it is slightly pricey.
It's a little expensive.
But it actually helps too if you have friends that are going into buying it. You can get multiple sheets, and you get a little bit of a quantity discount when you buy multiple sheets. Up here you have two of the main websites that you can buy it off of in the U.S. The CosplaySupplies.com, and also Yaya Han has a store, or part of her store is dedicated to that as well. So if you were interested in getting it, you can look up.
Oh, you know what? How many of you are local?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So I heard a rumor, and this is a rumor.
I heard that rumor too.
And someone might come and strangle me for saying this out loud, but Tap Plastics is looking into carrying it locally.
Woohoo!
David's ordered sheets already.
Oh, perfect. All right. So then it's a
Where
thing.
do you look at-
It just hasn't been announced.
What's it
Yeah.
called?
Yeah. Okay.
It's called Tap
So
Plastics.
Tap Plastics, and
Is
they're in
one like
Linwood. They're in
Kirkland,
Bellevue.
Bellevue,
Yeah. There's. You can look
I need to be
online.
Yeah,
writing
it's
things down.
TAP. Just look up Tap Plastics.
Yeah.
Basically, you can type that into Google. It should come right up, and
So they should be carrying those locally very soon.
So that's kind of the introduction of what we're doing. Before we keep going, I just wanted to introduce ourselves really quick. My name is Tina. I have a page called Firewing Creations on Facebook if you wanted to follow anything that I'm doing. I'm still kind of newer into the realm of cosplay, I guess. I've been cosplaying for about 3 years, but kind of getting more serious in the last year is when I started dabbling with Worbla, and I'm currently working on an armor project with it, so hopefully that will be good. I will introduce, we have Kristen from Kit Cosplay here. Why don't you tell us how long you've been cosplaying and how long you've been working with Worbla?
I've been seriously cosplaying as opposed to at all cosplaying since for about 5 or 6 years. Yeah, about 5 or 6 years, and then I started working with Worbla about 2 years ago. Was that when? It was 2 years ago. So Katie taught me actually. Yeah, so about 2 years ago.
Awesome. And then we have Abby from Abby Sue Cosplay. How about you? How long have you cosplayed?
I'm pretty sure I've been cosplaying for about 5.5 years now, and I kind of started, big hardcore. I did Princess Zelda from Twilight Princess and made the armor out of Crapple. And it works, and it's still, I can still wear it, so. That was back in 2009, program. And then I've been working with Worbla. I think I made claws for Catwoman.
You guys all hear her?
year.
Okay, alright, just make sure.
I made claws for Catwoman last year, so I think I've only been working with it for about a year, because Wonder Woman was the beginning of this year.
Okay, cool.
Then we have Katie from Apocalyptic Ash. How long have you been cosplaying and working with Worbla?
I did my first costume in 2007, I believe, but started kind of heavily making costumes in 2011, probably. And I've only been working with Worbla for about a year and a half, so you started about a year ago.
Okay. Well,
I think you started about the same time I
Okay, sure.
But I've made like full body armors out of it, like Commander Shepard and then Sasha from Pacific Rim. And then my most recent one was Athena from Borderlands, the pre-sequel.
Alright, so that is who is up here today. So let's just jump right into it. We're going to start with Abby. She's going to talk to us about patterning, getting all your stuff prepared, and then making your patterns. So go ahead, Abby.
Well, the first step would be to get as many research images as possible, and when I say as many, I mean a lot. This means many hours searching on Google and forums and anywhere you can find images for your costume. I mean, if it's a comic book, I tend to buy the comic books because there's a lot of angles in there. If it's from a movie, I'll watch the movie over and over again. And I'll find screenshots, a lot of them. My recent project is Sif from Dark World, and what these pieces are. So I got a bunch of images, and I found also images from the actual costumes hanging out on mannequins, and those are actually more detailed than the ones from the movie, which is really great to find if you're looking for in like from movies. So if you can find when they come around and put the costumes up on mannequins, it's like best time to get shots for
Do
your
you
costume.
use the RPF at all?
I do.
How many of you know about RPF? Just a few. Okay, so Replica Prop Forum. It's therpf.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's therpf.com. And they've got an amazing group of people on there that do fantastic research, and some people even make sketches, and they've done the costume before. Therpf.com.
And that's where I got a lot of my research for Catwoman from Batman Returns. So
That's where I got a lot
Yeah.
of my Sasha pictures too, because if you have seen Pacific Rim, the Russian pilot team are in the movie for all of maybe 3 minutes tops.
it's really hard to get pictures.
So there were no reference images, and somebody was a very nice person and took photos of the costumes on their mannequins when they were in some display in like LA or
Those
something.
are my favorite.
So I was lucky in that someone did that, so I had the pictures. Otherwise, I would have searched for you.
Yeah. But for things like video games, you can usually find a 3D render, or sometimes you can find them flat, which I found for Zelda, which was kind of nice. There's ways to find everything. You just got to do really a lot of research. So once you've done your research and you have your pictures, you probably are going to want to print out a few and have the rest on your computer, tablet, phone to reference quite often. And you will not ever remember that exact color, so always bring it with you.
Yeah, it's really good to print things out, honestly, even if you have a tablet, because I can't tell you how many times I've had, like, you can see in this picture up here that Tina has had her Wonder Woman pictures right in front of her when she's working on it, because, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
let's be honest,
I
I
do
can't
that.
recall. Yeah, I can't recall, so.
I do it wrong every time if I know one. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Like,
I
I think it looks like this. No.
So you're
They'll
looking
turn
at
out
it
badly.
again. So the next part now is to make actual patterns.
Ta-da!
Yes. So patterns are easy or hard depending on how you look at it. For me, I just kind of sketch things actually use math. For this, I just kind of like put a piece of paper over and then I'm like, that's the general shape, and I sketch it out. But other people like actually use math to do that kind of stuff.
I don't know, I think it's honestly, I mean, you could, but I think it's easier to make a pattern out of, like, tracing paper.
I just kind of throw it over which part of my body I want to, like, do, and I'm like, that looks about right, and then I draw it a little bit, and then I put it back on, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to change that, and then I change it a little bit. And then once it's done, I'll cut it out and try it again, and it looks about right.
You can always fold it in half to make sure that it's symmetrical.
Which is what I did in order to cut both sides symmetrical, because I don't draw symmetrical all the time. I mean, I'm close, but so. But that would be a pattern, and you always have to remember that you're going around something most of the time, because body parts are not square. Not at all. There's a lot of round parts, so you have to account for that, and that's why it would be tapered and wider. So you have to remember to taper around like wrist pieces or ankle pieces. You have to remember that your body is full of shape and not
Some
straight down.
people also use, like, they'll wrap their arm or leg or whatever in saran wrap and then put tape over that and draw directly on the tape. And then once you cut it off, just cut out that piece and then you have it shaped to whatever body part it is.
I've done that for my boot covers. I will wear the heel that I'm going to cover, and then I'll wrap everything in saran wrap, and then tape,
Painter's tape.
painter's tape, or duct tape.
Makes it
Or,
great
yeah,
conversation piece.
the masking tape and the painter's tape, you can draw on it really nicely.
Duct tape you can too, but it likes to come off a little bit, so.
It is a great conversation piece when someone walks in the room and you have your leg.
Saran wrap.
I've had that happen,
Because
yeah.
we all have duct tape dummies in freezer right now.
Do you guys know what duct tape dummies are? Yeah, okay, they're really cool. If you don't know what they are,
They're very helpful.
they are what we just described, but a full body. So you wrap
Get your friends.
all of yourself
Have a
in
fun
saran
time.
wrap, duct tape on top of that, and then
Don't
someone,
get your skin.
yeah, don't get your skin. Someone cuts you out of it. But what ends up happening is you can stuff, like tape it back up and stuff it, and then you have a dress form that's exactly you. And I can't tell you how helpful it is.
Oh, it's so helpful. But it's the only way I can make these. I had my friend's duct tape dummy for this one hanging out. I was like, oh, this will work.
So after paper pattern comes.
Then you gotta transfer your paper patterns onto craft foam, which is what I do. Not everyone does that. Some people do all Worbla, but I feel like craft foam is a good stabilizer in the middle because Worbla is kind of thin and it's not very stable on its own. So we use craft foam. It can come in many thicknesses. This is what I did, so I transferred my pattern onto this, if anyone wants to see it. I will put it here.
Okay, if you want, you can see it.
Yeah. So that, then you have all the pieces on your craft foam. A lot of the times there's layers. There's 3 layers to this piece. So there's 3 pieces of craft foam that I made. And then I covered them all in Worbla, and then I put them all together. So you can do that to make lots of different like depth and layer. And I know for this, I'm going to add stuff to it. I didn't feel like putting it under the Worbla this time, so I'm going to add it to the top instead. You can do it either way. Like puffy paint is good for things like raised designs, like Sif has. She has the scroll work on it.
Totally.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the special ways that you might make a round pattern, like for boobs?
Ah, yes.
Oh, the
So,
boobs.
Boob patterns aren't really patterns. They're just a round circle. So you make a circle, and with Worbla, it just kind of goes over the shape. You just have to be really careful.
So you would recommend not making a pattern for something as round as like chest plates, but maybe what about like shoulders or other
Shoulders,
round
I would
things?
say, would go in 2 pieces because the shoulder has got kind of an angle. So there's going to be a little bit of a weak part in the Worbla if you just use it. You know what I'm talking about, right? Don't you do 2 pieces for your
It depends on
shoulders?
what I'm making.
Usually, like if they're down here, I would say 2 pieces.
So I've made some that
With a
have 2
seam.
pieces and there's a seam there, and that works, but I've also made some that are just one single curve.
So you don't know everything.
Kind of the way that I did that, and the same way that I did the food cups, is I have these acrylic spheres that are in half and they like, go together and they're a ball. But what you do is you cover them in like Vaseline or something to make it not stick to it, and you heat the Worbla and you stick it on there and kind of mold it to that so
really
it's perfectly round. Yeah, it goes.
We've got a site on that and coming up specifically. What about making a pattern though?
A pattern
how do you, like-
for Valkyrie.
Like, do you make snips and then put those people together? Put those two pieces together?
For your Valkyrie, we did a circle, and then we did concentric circles, and then we actually cut a V out of it, so then it came in.
It is hard to explain. So if you're familiar with,
But if a V comes out of a circle, you're going to get more of like a triangle.
Kind of like a dart.
yeah,
Yeah,
like darting
a
the battery.
giant
Yeah.
dart.
So
But you can do that if you want with this. It just is you're going to have to close those seams if you want to dart it.
okay,
There's many ways.
all right. Want to talk about workspace?
Yes. Workspace is kind of important because if you try and work on your carpet, you're going to get a burn. So, and also you might burn your hand.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Yes. So you're going to want, if you're going to work on the floor, you're probably going to want something heat resistant. I have just a random plastic table that I got from Costco that I have on the floor.
Those are great. Honestly, like little plastic tables from Costco that are, I don't know, they're like
pretty
$10
big.
or something.
Yeah, they're
They're
not-
fantastic.
I use those. I mean, it melts a little bit, but it works. I mean, I've used it for about a year. She has a table that I have used more often. But my floor is what I use. Don't use your dining room table. You're probably going to hurt that as well, because you're going to be spraying a heat gun, or heating it with a heat gun that is meant for peeling paint. So
It's pretty darn hot.
it gets hot. So you're going to want to make sure that anything around that area is not heat.
So what you can do is you can make a working surface by taking poster board, what's like 30 cents at the craft store or something, and getting that HVAC tape from Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever. And it's just it's metal insulation tape and it's heat resistant, obviously. So you just cover that board with the heat resistant tape, and all of a sudden you have a mobile workstation that's also.
I think I also used a piece of plexiglass one time.
Yeah, totally. Cool, thank you. All right, cool. So let's move on.
Here we're gonna have Kristen talk to us about more of the actually forming, molding Worbla process.
This is where we get into it, you guys. Buckle up and get ready. We already talked about tracing paper because some parts you're going to want to make a pattern out of, like your forearm bracers or like leg bracers. Other parts you're just going to, like the boob cups, you can just make those on the fly. We'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to want craft foam. Craft foam is an excellent stabilizer. I would not recommend just doing Worbla.
No, I don't recommend that.
Yeah, it's thin. You guys all
You
saw the
can
Worbla.
layer it, you can,
Yeah,
but it's going to be really heavy. The Worbla is what stabilizes it as well as makes it a lot lighter
the
to
craft
wear.
foam. The craft foam.
Somehow I think of it.
Yeah, so definitely we recommend craft foam, and also the craft foam will give you those really interesting layers underneath. You can see in the bracers and then on the boob cups up there as well, that's all created with craft foam underneath, and then you just keep the Worbla on top of it. So craft foam, craft foam, craft foam. You're gonna need scissors, Sharpie, heat gun. If you don't know where to get a heat gun, since most of you are local, go to Harbor Freight. Honestly, find your local Harbor Freight. You can find a heat gun for $13, I believe.
We got ours at Home Depot.
And did you pay more for it?
We probably did.
Yeah. So go to Harbor Freight, pick up a cheaper heat gun. It's about $13, and it's gonna save your life because technically, I believe it can be heated and molded with like, I don't know.
You
They
can
say
use a
like
hairdryer,
I hear,
but it takes forever.
it'll take a year. You'll be dead. by the
That's
time.
it starts activating at 194 degrees. I looked that up last night.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
So
I did not know
get a
that.
heat
Get
gun.
to something that at least is around 200. You know, because they have the more expensive heat guns are like, oh, we can have this huge range. You don't need like 1,000 degrees. So
No, definitely not. Okay, so you need a heat gun, Harbor Freight, $13, super easy. Clay shaping tools. When I say that, look at the top right picture with the like little purple thing. I don't know what else to call those, but I found them at Michael's. They came in a pack.
It was called a bone folder when I was in
Oh,
college.
really? Okay.
It used to fold paper as well.
Okay, yeah, so those, I got them a pack of Michael's for super cheap, and what it really helps do is create those layers. So if you put layers in, you can really gently push the Worbla into those.
I also have a set of dental tools that I use.
and a little more low-key in that first one.
When I
Where
say
is
that's
that?
my folder, I use a butter knife.
You see the little stick in the very bottom that's like a kebab, a bamboo kebab?
And then there's
So
my
you
little
can be
butter knife.
creative.
So, all right, apparently there's lots of ways to do it. I
Butter
do it the
knife.
hard way, and dental tools apparently are a thing too.
Okay, so you can buy them on Amazon, like a little pack of them for like $10.
Oh,
You send me a link, right?
it's not weird.
Order those dental
All right,
tools.
I've ordered weird.
Amazon
Hot
distributors.
knife, this is gonna, I mean, you can get a hot knife because it'll make the Worbla easier to cut, but what I do personally is I heat it up a little bit with my heat gun. That makes it way easier to cut. You need to do it with the scissors. Puppy paint, craft knife, and then we highly recommend, like I said before, a dress form or a duct tape dummy because you can mold it onto yourself. That's totally possible, but it's way easier if you have.
It takes time for it to cool, so you really don't want to sit there like I did a couple nights ago, waiting for this to cool on my arm.
Yeah, I mean, a good 15 minutes, I'd say.
10, 15 minutes, I was hanging out there.
Yeah, okay. So,
As you're on Facebook.
there's a couple different methods, there's a couple different, what's the word I'm looking for, like religions of Worbla techniques, yeah. Many people will, I'm sorry, my leg is driving me crazy. Many people will talk about sandwiching 2 layers of Worbla together over craft foam. And you know, there's no right answer. There's no, this is the way, how you do it, this is the best way. It really depends on what you're making, but we do have some recommendations. So first I'm going to talk about 1 layer of Worbla. And we don't normally recommend this, but it worked out really well for my Batwoman mask. I was able to heat it up and mold it exactly to my face, around my cheekbones, around my nose. So when I put that mask on, it fits my face absolutely perfectly. And it looks really cool.
Oh, it looks really good.
However, don't leave that in a place where it might get hot.
You know, like on a road trip down in California.
Yeah. So rip Batwoman mask.
Oh.
That's in a hot car.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah. So
They
that was
won't melt
actually
in like hot sun.
no.
It was sun, but it was like greenhouse.
It was. I mean, it was like
Car,
15
right?
hours. We were driving in
Yeah.
California.
Yeah.
It was right in direct sun.
Yeah.
It was in the back.
Right in the back.
I
So.
just mean like if you're standing outside, your armor's not gonna like.
Oh,
melt.
yeah.
No.
Bring a cooler full of
But
ice.
cars get hot, so don't leave it in.
One layer melts a lot easier than 2 layers or more. So.
Yeah. So you can use that method. I wouldn't use it for anything else though. This slide has a lot of information on it, so I'm just going to read it out loud to you guys. You can also sandwich a layer of craft foam between 2 layers of Worbla. This method can be useful for creating very stable pieces. You'll end up with a piece that is smooth on both sides. Start with the craft foam you cut out from your pattern. Use a Sharpie to trace about 1 inch around the foam. Flip the foam and then trace out 1 inch again from the Worbla, on the Worbla. Cut the Worbla and place the piece of foam in between these 2 pieces, ensuring that the shiny side is facing the craft foam. Heat, shape, and cut off the excess around the sides and sand down the seam. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. This method is particularly useful for creating boob armor. Start by molding one. It's true. Start by molding
Yes,
one.
it's
That's
2
just how you
layers
do it,
of
not gonna
Worbla.
lie.
You kind of have to. You can't really do a full piece of
Yeah.
craft foam in there. It's hard because of the roundness.
Yeah, it's the shape of it.
Anyone like to see the boob armor?
And boob armor is not shaped like real boobs. It is. They are
It's different.
scarce.
They're round.
So you start by molding 1
Not gonna
layer of
walk up the chair
Worbla
and
over a
come up
styrofoam ball, or if it has an acrylic. That's cool. You'll want to use Pam or Vaseline or hair gel to lube the surface of the ball.
I used hair gel.
Glue. Then you can glue your craft foam or rope or puppy paint or little plastic balls detailing to the surface of the rounded Worbla, and then heat another layer of Worbla over that.
Or you can do it like I did and actually sandwich them together and then put the whole thing on it. You can do it a couple different ways.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
That's true. I personally like putting the detailing in the craft foam, because then I can just keep the layer over it and then push the Worbla up into the
And
nooks
as
and
you can
crannies.
see, we both have different methods.
Yeah, so there's no one
And they
right
both
way to do
work.
it. Yeah, they both totally work. And then ensure your detailing pops by using clay tools or a butter knife to mold the Worbla around the material underneath. You want to very gently push it in, because when it's hot, it can tear really easily.
Which I've done, but
Oh.
it still looks
Yeah.
okay, and you can fix it with a tiny little piece of
Yeah,
Worbla, like
you can
rolled
totally
up
patch
and
it
stick
too,
it in
but
there.
I wouldn't recommend it, because then you'll have to sand it, it's a pain in the butt, but it's possible.
Yeah.
On the note of being hot, if your Worbla gets to the point where it's white, do not touch it.
It hurts.
You will burn yourself.
I've done it often.
I've done it. Katie's done it.
I'm pretty sure cosplayers just
No?
don't
Okay.
have
We don't have fingerprints.
fingerprints.
Yeah. We're outside the government. And then the thinner Worbla can tear really easily. And then, oh, whoa, that's no. Okay, hold on. Technical difficulties.
Oh, your back
Because of my
is so
fat
big.
fingers. Okay. Nope, side notes. Alright, we'll go through it all again. Welcome.
This is the fast forward.
Yep. So this is just make sure you guys are all paying attention, nobody tests at the end. Yeah, it has trouble loading pictures, because the pictures, I put 17 pictures on each slide. Whoops.
Pictures are good.
Okay,
Oh,
we're
yeah,
almost
that's
there. There we go. Okay, we're back. And we're back.
And we're back.
All right, so lastly, you can fold over Worbla on the craft foam. You can see it up there. So this is what I do nearly 90% of the time, unless it's something special that I'm working on. It uses a lot less Worbla. Did we mention it's expensive? It's a little expensive. So you use a lot less Worbla, and it's still just as stable.
Using a battery.
So what you do is you take your craft foam and then cut out like 1.5 inches or 2 around the Worbla from the craft foam, and then you heat it up and fold it over. Make sure the shiny side is against the craft foam as well.
That's what I was doing too.
Alright, perfect, and then we will go to Katie, she's gonna talk about some of the finishing aspects, the making it so that we can actually put it on ourselves, and then also about finishing, making it look nice once we actually got the shape we want.
Okay, so there's a bunch of different ways that you can attach Worbla to yourself. I generally use little D-rings, which are these little guys, with a piece of Worbla kind of folded over onto the armor. And then I put like nylon webbing all over the place everywhere. But there's more ways than just that. Like you use magnets for your Valkyrie boots, right?
Let's talk about zippers. This is on the screen.
Okay, so
We're going by the PowerPoint, Katie, and I spent 6 hours.
okay, so let's talk about this. I did this thing for my Athena boots, where I put a zipper in the Worbla because it's supposed to be all the way around her calf. And apparently nobody had ever heard of this before, which I thought was funny because I did it with my shepherd armor a year ago.
I tried and failed at this, by the way. I don't even try.
I haven't tried yet. So what I actually did is I just took a separating zipper that was about the same size as the piece, and then I used Barge, which is a contact cement that you can order on Amazon for like $20.
Maybe that's not.
I used hot glue last year and it didn't work very well, but I used Barge.
Don't use hot glue on anything ever. Maybe on something, unlike your craft foam, but on things you expect to stay in your body.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if it's felt or feathers, you can use hot glue. It stays like crazy, but that's it.
But not
So-
good stuff.
Not this.
So I used Barge and I just glued it to the inside. I don't know how well you guys can see that. Like, actually you can see it there. I just glued it to the inside of the piece and then it zips up just like anything
Awesome.
does. kind of a
hard.
pain because
Yeah.
it's like plastic, but
Nice.
it really does.
But it works.
Yeah, so that is a way you can attach
It's a
things
thing
to
that you can
yourself.
do.
It is a thing that you can do. But there's that, there's the D-rings, and there's the just, yeah, you can leave it open like that. I usually don't,
It has a lot of give and it snaps right back. You can stretch it pretty far. And
you
then
can
it snaps
use
right back.
an elaborate system of straps
Or that.
like I did. It was probably unnecessary, but it worked.
Oh my God.
And I use a lot of elastic too, just depending on the piece and where it has to go. You can use Velcro, but
Is it Velcro?
if it's in a place that it'll actually
It's
like
so I
stay
can
with
take it off and
Velcro.
wash it if I want.
Yeah, there you go. But there's tons of different ways. You can use lacing, which I think is on the
That's what this is.
the boob plate too. In there.
And the boob. I tend to like to punch holes in things, I guess.
And then obviously there's like buckles that you can use too. And I do all of the straps and like figuring out where it has to go before I paint it. Just so that I know if I need to change something, I can before I have everything painted and
Depends
then
on
I'm
if I
screwed.
remember or not. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
There you go.
Well, after you make that mistake, you'll remember next time.
Do it before painting.
It's helpful to do it before you.
But there's tons of different ways that you can attach it to yourself, and you just have to find out what's right for you and what's right for whatever piece that you're making.
So, Valkyrie's boob cups, I don't know what else to call them.
No,
Sorry.
boob cups.
Their armor.
Yeah, that's where all the arrows go.
Yeah, exactly. My heart is guarded by Asgardian magic. So, in the comics, you'll see they just kind of float on her chest. Nobody knows how they actually stay on. So, what I actually did is I got
Like this.
the neodymium magnets. They're like tiny little magnets. So you can buy them on Amazon. And I glued them to like 5 to the inside of each cup. Although I only used 3 maybe. Anyway, so I glued some to the inside of each cup.
Would you use the glue?
What did I use? Oh, E6000.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The best glue.
It smells and it's toxic, and you have to let it sit overnight, but that ain't coming apart.
Next time you should be large.
I should. I need to talk. Yeah, we need to talk about contacts here. All right. So, and then when I put on the costume, I just put, the corresponding magnet on the other side of my leotard, and put those in, and then magically, Asgardian magic makes, as it does with magnets, they float on my chest. So you can do that. I wouldn't recommend it for most things because,
Something like this, though, when you want to be able to take it apart.
yeah.
Currently, I have just like wax keeping it together, but I want to put magnets on each of these 4 little sides so that it can just come apart and put back on.
Cool. All right.
See, I'm using my friends'
So after I attach everything and I get it like where I need it to sit, I start sealing so that I can paint it. There are also a myriad of different ways that you could seal and paint things, but the more common ones that I've heard people using are either gesso, which is like a painter's primer for a canvas.
You get it at Michael's.
You can get it anywhere.
Or you get it anywhere apparently.
It's, yeah, I've got it.
Safe
Safeway.
way.
Or a lot of people also use wood glue, which I personally didn't like very much, but if it works for you, then that's awesome.
The reason why I use wood glue is because I cannot sand in my living room. So that might be why. I don't have a shop, I have a living room. So I use layers of wood glue, and it turns out pretty good.
So wood glue, I found from personal experience really quick, it works really well on pieces that aren't going to flex. So don't use it on like shin armor, because when you walk, that armor will flex and that wood glue will just chip right off with your paint and everything else on top of the wood glue. But if it's on something that's not going to flex, like,
No, it stays pretty well.
well then maybe I didn't do enough layers.
I did like 4 or 5 layers. I do a lot of layers and you let them dry in between.
Okay.
I don't know. I've had good luck with wood glue. Some people don't. It really depends.
Yeah, there's no one way to do this.
Some people hate certain methods and love others, and the other person is the exact opposite. So you really have to find out what's good for you.
They also, for things like this, I was super lazy and didn't seal it. So you can also do that. It just doesn't have the smooth texture that you probably want. But you can just paint directly on.
The paint doesn't need to pop as much.
Maybe.
I'm not sure. That's fine.
Yeah. But it also just depends on like what you're making. If you want it to have kind of a leathery, rough texture, you don't necessarily have to seal it because then it will be rough. But if you want it super glossy and shiny, you probably want to seal and sand and seal and sand and do that over and over, and then
Actually,
it'll be
don't
super
sand.
smooth. Or don't sand and use
With glue, I don't sand. But with gesso, you should sand.
Yeah, and so after doing that, there's lots of different paints that you can use. I usually just use brow can spray paint. A lot of the times I'll go to, there's a couple different places that sell Montana Gold acrylic spray paint.
That's the best.
And there's tons and tons of different colors that you can find that are perfect for whatever you're doing. And I use that a lot, and then just normal other brow can colors.
Use Robin Buff.
Yeah, you can use rub and buff, you can use acrylics, which is what I usually do the detail work in, and then just whatever you want really. And then I just use a clear coat, like a matte clear coat usually, unless I
metallic
want it to
paints,
be.
some metallic paints will seal, if you put a sealer over the top of them, they will go dark.
I know.
So sometimes they do that, and I found the fix for that with Antonio's breastplate. It was the stuff that goes dark. I put Mod Podge over the top of it to seal it.
So what Abby's saying is that if you do a metallic paint, like a metallic spray paint, there's other like spray top coats that if you put over that metallic spray paint, it will not be metallic anymore. It'll just turn brown.
It'll look kind of brown.
So
It
use
makes
Mod
it
Podge
sad.
instead to paint on there for the metallic paints.
It's
And
just
then-
certain brands, I think.
Can you tell us about weathering? Because Katie is the
She's
absolute
awesome.
best at weathering, and I don't even know how she does it.
I do some weathering, but she like does a lot of weathering. She's
She's the weather wizard.
I don't know. I just to do the weathering on like the Pacific Rim armor, I used like black and brown paints and just kind of scribbled everywhere. I kind of watered it down a bunch so that it's not just black, but that's basically what I did. Like kind of rubbed it into the cracks and the
Like where you
joints
think,
and
where you
everything.
think dirt might go
Yeah,
off.
anywhere
Use
that
like a paper towel.
yeah, anywhere that well I use my fingers because
I use
hair,
paper
but
Or you use your fingers.
Or your fingers.
but anywhere that you think might get dirty and stay dirty, just rub your black or brown paint in those and you're weathered.
Sweet. And then for a carbon fiber look, I also found that if you, so you know those non-slip mats, I put a picture up there, and you spray over that like one way and then the other way with like black and then silver, it'll look like carbon fiber. It's pretty rad. Talk about top coat. By this point, you'll be pretty pleased with yourself or crying or both. And then non-metallic pieces look best with a matte top coat, would you say?
Yeah.
And then metallic pieces with the gloss, but do the Mod Podge with the metallic pieces.
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, rub and buff, you don't have to. I used just a spray clear coat on rub and buff. It stays the same color. If you're using the spray metallic, yes, use Mod Podge on top, or you're going to not have metallic anymore.
Alright, so that is most of the content that we had prepared. We can open it up for questions from you, but we can have this mic here in the middle so that everyone can hear you. Also on the screen, we have our contact information, Twitter and Facebook pages for each of us, if anyone is interested in following us. Like Kristen was saying at the beginning, if you do start getting progress pictures of working with Worbla, we'd love to see that.
Show me all of your
Please.
Yeah, please.
We love it. So
You can start a hashtag on Twitter.
Yeah, show me your Worbla.
Do it. Show me your
Alright,
Worbla.
done.
Do it.
I'll follow that tag.
So looks we have about 10 minutes for questions, so if you want to start lining up if you have a question, that would be awesome.
No, everyone completely understands how they're gonna do Worbla. No, alright, Magneto, yes.
I know you used, I don't even know if this is.
It's on.
It's on.
Okay, cool. So I know you used the sort of a heat forming method with the boob armor. Is about how far can that stretch if you've got a buck that's a different shape instead of just a sphere?
How far can the Worbla stretch
Yeah.
without tearing?
Mine was starting to tear.
Okay.
I had to patch it on the inside. If you look at it right there, it's
Okay.
patched on the inside because it was starting to look see-through.
Oh, okay.
So
It'll
that's
get thin
about
pretty quickly.
where it's going to be, like just a half sphere.
Yeah.
That's my needle.
So when you're using the laces, have you ever used grommeting underneath that, like punch through a metal grommet?
I have a love-hate relationship with grommets. So I don't personally, but if you knew how to use grommets in something that thick, I would say that it would look really nice. But something that thick, I think you have to have a really professional tool, which I don't have. And my grommets fall out, so I avoid that.
So one of the other methods that I've used before is once everything's formed, I just take my Dremel, which is also a super helpful tool to have, and then I've got a bit on there that can just drill tiny little holes, and so I just pop holes through it, and then put, what is that called, like suede lacing through it, and that really,
Like, I don't know, laces.
yeah, like cording.
Shoes, cording.
Yeah, then that
I
will
do
really
it-
help too.
I do it the hard way and I use a leather punch.
Or you can not hate
Hurt your
hate your
hands.
hands.
That's all I have. I don't have a trouble.
I think the problem with trying to do the grommets is that it's just, it's so hard that it's kind of hard, because when you put them in fabric, it has
They
those little
fall
teeth
out.
that can
No,
grab
they
it
fall
too.
out of fabric too.
They do sometimes, yes.
I think if you have the good grommets, the ones with the really expensive tool, then they'll probably stay.
We have a question over here.
What do you do for lining for pieces that are gonna go on bare skin, and how do you attach it to the inside?
Well, for this one, I just put it just straight on. It doesn't hurt really, it just stays. But for like pieces like my SIF bracers, this is my leather bracer piece that is gonna go here, and the bracer will attach on top of that. I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna attach it yet, probably glue, and maybe her contact cement. Because it sounds really awesome.
I don't know, I've had the Worbla directly on my skin, and it doesn't rub, I mean, unless,
It's
it
not bad.
can, if you have like pointed parts,
Like
it can
for,
rub at the ends, like your wrists, your ankles.
for boob armor, I suggest putting a bra in there, because that's gonna hurt.
Well, I mean, underneath it, yeah.
So, yes, we made little places to stick the,
What do they call it, bra strap?
bra straps.
Those things that go on your shoulder.
It's lunchtime.
There's pieces to stick the bra straps through, so I put clear straps on the bra, and I like cut the bra down so it wouldn't show. So you can do like undergarment type things that are like
Yeah.
underneath it if you feel like it hurts to wear.
Yeah, that, I mean, something not a sensitive body part like that, but honestly, it doesn't
It
bother me.
doesn't really hurt, it
at
doesn't
all.
bother me at all.
And I would think that you could, if you really wanted to, you could glue on like a sheet of
Yeah.
felt or
Yeah,
something
totally.
just on the inside of it if you want something softer.
I wouldn't recommend just putting, like this, it doesn't have craft foam on the inside, it's just hard, so I wouldn't recommend putting that just directly on your skin, especially if you're gonna be at like a convention or something where it's really hot, because you get kind of gross.
Yeah, that's true.
And
It
it
doesn't
can
breathe.
hurt.
It doesn't breathe at all, it's plastic.
Like my
Yeah.
bracer for Athena, it got pretty painful because it's hard like this on the inside, and it kind of wore on my wrist.
I think
But
that's one reason
generally,
why
I have a bodysuit just on underneath anyway, so I'm fine.
Anyone else? Any questions? All right, so what you can do is that if you're in the middle of it, oh, yes, no, okay. If you're in the middle of it, go ahead and tweet us or find us on our page and say, hey, I got stuck on this part, can you help me? You're totally willing to
We
help.
are all very happy to answer questions.
Yeah.
We really don't mind.
So what was your question?
Leather lacing. Nice.
That works too. All right.
Since you guys don't have any other questions, can I actually have Matt come up here, please?
So we can show.
We all watch
So
you walk.
this is my friend Matt, and he is named up for Cartoon Dragons 2. And he made all of this wonderful stuff out of Worbla. And I just
That
wanted
turned out
to show
amazing.
It was really nice. It was, yes,
Yes, darling.
When are you gonna finish your Astrid? Because I want that to be real.
Someday.
Ugh, I want it to be real.
Someday.
So many projects.
Emerald.
Or you can do stuff like this.
That'd be awesome. Emerald City.
Like, you can just twirl things.
crafts, yeah.
I've even seen, I was looking on Worbla's website, if you just, like worbla.com, I think, and they have a bunch of pictures from a bunch of different projects. Some of them, some people were even using it almost like a sculpting clay, and they were making like these really cool dragons with lots of little details. So there's a lot of potential that you can
very
do. It's kind of
versatile.
just up to your imagination what you want to try with it.
It's so lightweight, you can do pretty much a lot of things.
Oh, that's a good,
Oh, there's
on
a
that note.
We have a question right over there.
Go for it.
How's the weather resistance? I mean, like
It's plastic.
rain.
It doesn't have a problem.
The only weather that'll like kind of affect it is heat.
Yeah.
So don't
Leave
leave
it
it
hot
on the
like
car.
that.
Yeah. I had, what was I wearing? It was Athena, I think. I was outside and it was hot and it started kind of like getting soft. But in a convention center, it's usually not too bad.
And I mean, that's why you seal it at the end. A lot of those sealers are weather resistant as well, but it's also plastic.
Yeah.
So.
If you guys, really quick, if you guys want to see other, like, Kamui Cosplay,
She is amazing.
she has a lot of fantastic YouTube tutorials on, okay, this is how you do Worbla, this is how you paint it. Look up Kamui Cosplay, she's fantastic. She's really cute.
She is so cute.
And then, yeah. Yes,
The
and the
book,
books too,
yeah.
I've downloaded her books, they're
Yeah.
awesome. What's your question?
For a beginning project, if you just want to try it out, armor or weapons first?
I would make something small.
Just some, yeah, little.
So
Like a
start with
brace.
maybe a bracer or
A bracer's a good
A
use.
bracelet, yeah.
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 Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I would just start small because if you go like just dive right in like I did and make
Props
like
are
a full
really
chest
hard.
piece, you're probably gonna mess it up.
So a good, like, really just tiny project, I have a Captain Marvel costume and she's got a coin that's kind of attached to her belt. And it's like a circular disc and then it has a medallion, it has a star inside of it. So what I did is I took craft foam, cut out the star, and I just covered that in Worbla. So that's like a really super easy, I want to try this to make sure I don't die project. Yes.
Kiara?
Yeah.
So is the star, so those are separate photos?
Yeah, underneath there's at least 2 layers of stars.
So it's
That-
just one piece of Worbla at the top?
Yes, that is
and then
correct.
just form it around the.
I used a sharp tool to form it around the craft foam. The craft foam doesn't really like squish too hard under. I mean, that's what a lot of these pieces are as well. It's not layered on top, it's underneath. So I tend to like to layer my details as craft foam rather than layering the Worbla on top, which you can do as well. But I feel like this takes less Worbla to layer the craft foam instead of the Worbla itself. That is my own personal opinion though.
I think we're out of time, so we'll meet you out in the hall if you have questions.